Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. My name is Mark Cole. I'm the president and CEO of the John Maxwell Leadership Enterprise. I believe every one of you watching this right now is just like John. You welcome Mondays because you look forward to starting your week off looking for ways to value people. And since today is Monday, my friends, let's hear from the man of the hour. He is our leader, our friend, John C. Maxwell.
Welcome to Mondays with Maxwell. Hi, I'm John. I'm so glad you're here with me. I look forward every Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time of being with you. And this is again in our Best Advice series. And as you know, one Monday I give you some of my best advice. And then I go to some friends of mine that are highly successful and I share with you their best advice. And today I'm so excited because I'm going to bring to you and to your attention two beautiful, wonderful, close friends of mine, Brad and Julie Duncan. And these two people are just absolutely good friends, life changers. They've been in business for over 40 years now, and they have one of the largest direct marketing companies in America, that's for sure. And when I'm with them, they're so optimistic, they're so tenacious, they're so fun. I mean, when you're with Brad and Julie, you're going to have a blast. You're going to laugh. Here's the word I like for Brad and Julie. They're contagious. They make you, when you're with them, just want to be with them. And they have literally made generosity their growth strategy. And I sat down, we had dinner one night. We had a 3.5-hour dinner. And I just talked to them. I said, I do best advice. I want to share you and let the people know about what you are and who you are. Give me the best advice. And they did. And by the way, they give best advice to literally thousands and thousands of people. They are truly great leaders. And in just a moment, I'm going to give you their best advice. But we always have Andrew to deal with in the studio. There's always Andrew, and he always says, well, John, I've got some more advice for the people. You know what I found out about Andrew? He never runs out of advice, but he's always funny. He's just, and so, I mean, I'm ready to kind of bring Brad and Julie into the mix. Right there on the teleprompter, he's got one of his best advice for you, and it's pretty good too, so I'm going to give it to you. Now, this is from Andrew. Here's Andrew's best advice. By the way, Andrew, maybe when we're done with this series, you ought to do a book on best advice, kind of like humor. You know what I'm saying? And here's what Andrew says: an apple a day keeps anyone away if you throw it hard enough. Oh, Andrew, I'm not sure that's exactly what the doctor meant, but I like your advice anyway. So let's go to Brad and Julie Duncan. Here's what they shared with me that evening that I want to pass on to you. They shared with me that how we view things is how we do things. An evening with Brad and Julie was an evening about perspective. Here's what I know. What we believe about life determines how we perceive life, which determines what we receive from life. The old comedian, you're too young to know about this, but Flip Wilson was a great comedian, and he used to have this expression he would say all the time: what you see is what you get. Stephen Furtick says your perspective will either be your prison or your passport. What I'm about to share with you, the advice of Brad and Julie, has great life-changing potential for you. Trust me, at the end of our few minutes together, you will just be a little further down the road because of what these two terrific leaders shared with me that I now share with you. That evening in our dinner conversation, they basically gave me 4 what I would call points about perspective. I pass them on to you. Number 1, hold the perspective of others in a proper perspective. Julie started the evening off with me, and she said to me, she said, John, I had a wonderful father. And she said, when I was young, and when I say she was young, I think if I remember right, she was maybe 10, 12 years old, quite young. She said, my father said this to me: don't care so much about what other people think, that it keeps you from living your best life. And when she said that, my heart resonated to Julie, and I thought, I love this. I love that her father would say, don't let other people and what they think about you somehow control your behavior until it keeps you from the best life that you truly could have. And it reminded me of this statement: the most important voice that you listen to is your own. That's why I tell people all the time when they do self-talk, be careful what you say to yourself. This is the most important voice that you're going to hear. Let me give you some questions to ask about people's perspective of you. Questions I ask about people's perspective of me. In other words, when Julie's father said, don't let the perspective of others limit your own life, I've got a list of questions that I wrote down, kind of inspired by Julie. Here are the questions. When people have a perspective of me, I ask myself these questions. First, do they care about me? If they don't care about me, to be honest with you, why would their perspective matter? Number two, do they want the best for me? Number three, do they understand me? A lot of people, they just don't understand you. A misunderstanding leads to a wrong perspective. Number four, do they want to control me? Number five, will they help me? I mean, are they going to give me more than perspective, or are they going to give me a hand? Another question I ask myself is, are they immature? Immature people always have a selfish perspective. I remember when I was up in the New England area, I was with some people doing a leadership conference, and that night after I spoke, they asked me to come to one of their cabins, and they brought me to the cabin, and they had, oh my gosh, I don't know how many crabs they had, but they had been out, I started to say crab hunting. I don't think you hunt crabs. That's not the right phrase. Crab hunting, I don't think you go out and shoot those suckers. What would that be? Crab gathering? Crab catching? But here's what they told me. I don't know anything about crabs. You can tell already. Andrew, did you have an answer? What is it?
Crabbing.
Crabbing? Crabbing. Is that the word for it? You're out crabbing? Now remember, the one who just told me that is the same one who gives you Andrew's advice every time. So just take that all in perspective. Okay, they were out crabbing, and here's what was interesting. They told me that when you're crabbing, you don't need a lid on your basket as long as you have 2 crabs in it. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, if you have 2 crabs in your basket, you don't need a lid. And I said, what do you mean you don't need a lid? I mean, those crabs have claws. They could just climb out of the basket and have their freedom. And they said, no, you don't understand. If there are 2 crabs in the basket, one crab won't let the other crab crawl out. The moment that crab starts to go out of the basket, the other crab will reach down and pull him back down. And I looked at him, I said, man, I know a whole bunch of people just like that. Don't you, huh? You just start to make a little progress. They just pull you back. They just pull you down. And so Julie, when her father said, just don't let the other people's perspective become a limitation on your life. My gosh, what a gift he gave you, Julie, at a very young age. So we have this conversation, Brad, Julie, and myself, my team, and it keeps going. And then another perspective popped up that they shared, and that is, keep a realistic perspective as you become successful. They kept talking about the fact, don't let success go to your head. Max Dupree said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality. And the challenge with success, to be honest with you, is it's a separator. And the challenge with separation is when you get separated from people, you lose the common touch, and so much of the time you lose the realistic touch. I can still remember in my life, when I would speak at conferences, during the breaks, I would just go down to the front and stand there, and people would come up, and we'd just talk, and they'd ask questions about what I taught, and I just kind of loved the camaraderie. And I remember very specifically when I stepped down to have that conversation, and all of a sudden, the people around me, instead of wanting to ask me questions, wanted me to sign one of my books. And so I started signing books. And I really missed the conversation. That was the day I realized that I had gotten to a level of success that was going to begin to separate me. I was going to be an author that signed books, not a friend that just kind of had a little conversation with people that you love. It's okay. It's part of what happens in your life. But the challenge with separation is if we're not careful, we lose perspective. And when I was sitting then again with Brad and Julie that evening, one of the things I just loved is I thought they haven't lost perspective. They've been highly, highly successful, but they're real. They're genuine. They care. They've not lost touch. That's why I share with people all the time, just walk slowly through the crowd. Take your time. Listen. Listen, learn, and then lead. The third thing that happened in that dinner conversation about perspective is that this came up also in the conversation, and as focus on the big picture when the small stuff distracts you. Again, Brad and Julie were talking. They were talking about how that it's easy to get distracted by things that really don't matter. And I put this quote, as I was listening to him at the table, I put it on my iPhone, and I'm passing it on to you now, right now, because it really comes from them. Every day may not be good, but there is good in every day. You've heard me talk about what you focus on expands. And in our days, we have good days, we have bad days. I've already shared with you in a previous Monday with Maxwell that I expect to see problems. I expect to have problems. Well, what am I going to focus on? Harper Lee said, people generally see what they look for and what they listen for. It's Nehemiah. Of course, you know that I'm a person of faith. And Nehemiah was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and he had distractors down there. Just what Brad and Julie were talking about, small stuff. He's trying to build a wall, and they want to kind of distract him with the small stuff. Like, hey, Nehemiah, come on down. We want to talk to you. We got some issues. We want to bring up some complaints. And Nehemiah, he says, I can't come down. I've got to stay up here. I'm building a wall. I cannot come down. That's what Brad and Julie are saying. When you're doing something great that's making a difference in people's lives, don't let the small petty stuff control your agenda, control your day. Hey, quit getting off of the wall doing something big and life-changing to try to satisfy just a few people who are never going to take the journey with you and usually just want to kind of distract you on taking your own journey. In that dinner conversation, I told you, didn't it? It was a 3.5-hour conversation. And by the way, they not only taught me a lot that night about perspective, we laughed and cried. And I mean, we're still texting each other about oysters and just some conversation we had that evening that was just absolutely contagious. That's these two people. They're contagious. Number 4. Brad brought this up. Man, I tell you, when he brought it up, I thought, how good is this? I pass it on to you. Live with a values perspective. Brad got very teary when he began to talk about his father. His father's passed away. I knew his dad. His dad was very successful. His dad was a great, great man. Brad has a lot of me in him, and the fact that I won the parent lottery. He won the parent lottery. His parents are amazing. And so Brad, when we're talking about perspective, he said, let me tell you something my dad taught me. He said, my dad taught me treat people right. Brad, do the right thing for people. Treat people right. And Brad's dad was a very successful business person, but he was more important, he was a very successful person. And so I pressed him. I said, well, when your dad said, treat people right, what did he mean? And then he gave this expression, and I'm reading this because I don't want to miss it because it was so good. He said, my dad taught me, don't do what is best, do what is right. Wow. So my dad said, treat people right. Not just treat people best, treat people right. So I pulled it out. Come on, Brad. Teach me some more. Give me some more. And Julie's jumping in there, kind of helping. And he said to me, best is subjective. In other words, he said, what maybe is best for me maybe isn't best for you at all. So he said, I don't always try to do what is best because that could be very personal, could be very subjective. But he said, right aligns with good values. He said, if you align your behavior with good values, then everybody wins in it. And I thought, wow, I love this distinction. Don't try to do the best. Just try to do what's right. You know, Teddy Roosevelt said, in any decision, the best thing to do is the right thing to do. In my book, Change Your World, by the way, it's only been out now for 3 months, and it's doing exceptionally well. In fact, it's doing better than any book I've ever had. In fact, in 2 months, I think it had already sold over a couple 100,000 copies. And in my book, Change Your World, I talk about the value of values, and I close with this, that when the Enron 2001, when corporations started messing up and started being people that the people of the companies couldn't trust, there began to be just an ethical collapse in corporate America. And Time Warner, my publisher, asked me to write a book on business ethics. I said I can't do it. And they said, why? I said, because there's no such thing as business ethics. There's just ethics. And if you got ethics, it works in business. Oh, happy day. And the challenge was for me to write a book that would help people do the right thing. And so I wrote it on the golden rule. Treat others as you want to be treated. Sounds like Brad's daughter. It sounds like Brad's father. Treat people right. I can tell you that was a beautiful change in my life because all of a sudden I understood that if you live and learn good values, you have an inner change that the law can never reach or touch. And I just, as I closed my evening with Brad and Julie, I said to myself, these are wise leaders, and they understand that the 4 perspectives they gave me that night was such solid advice. I mean, take these 4 and chew on them for a couple of days. Live them, practice them. Trust me, Brad and Julie helped us see things in a better and a different way. Thanks for being with me today on Monday with Maxwell. See you next week, 12 Monday, Eastern Standard Time. And now, let me introduce to you one of our coaches. Hi, John Maxwell here, and I'm with Anita Dahlstrom, one of our John Maxwell team coaches. I want you to hear her story. Really, Anita joined with her husband, and they became, this is very common. Husband and wives a lot of times join our John Maxwell team. And then Anita and her husband were very, very successful. Then just recently, her husband passed away. And so I asked her how she was doing, and she's a trooper. She's doing good. But Anita, we're so glad that you're part of the team, and we know your husband was a very vital part of our team.
He's still here with me.
He's still with you.
Absolutely.
Hey, you haven't lost him. You know right where he is, don't you? Huh?
This is my heart.
Right in your heart. That's beautiful.
With the Lord, we're good.
Anita, so tell me what it was like before you and your husband joined, and give us just a glimpse.
Okay. Just briefly, I left corporate America in 2014. After 30 years plus, I started at the age of 5, so let me be clear.
And we believe that, too.
Yeah,
we believe
30
that.
plus years in corporate America, in Fortune 50s and 400s. I was working in restaurant management in the beginning, multi-unit leadership later on, transitioned and ended up being a chief HR officer in the C-suite with the full intention of having my own business and focusing on my passion. So I left in 2014 and formed my own company at the time for leadership consulting so I could focus on culture and values, executive coaching, and training. 2014, you probably remember, you were recognized by the American Management Association and by Inc. magazine. And I have my eyes out, like I have to add to my portfolio, like who out there has material that I want to have licensed content that I can use?
Come on.
Yeah, #1 leadership expert and #1 business person by Inc. magazine, the AMA. And that was like, okay, I need to check out John's organization. And so in 2015, I was doing my homework and my business was going. Bruce joined the business in 2016. It was going well. I just needed more stuff in my toolkit.
Sure.
Not calling it stuff.
Yeah, no, you needed more tools on your toolkit.
I needed more tools.
Yeah, sure.
And your name, 21 Laws of Leadership, the Irrefutable Laws, I got New Year's Eve in 1999 when I made the move from operations to the corporate offices.
Sure.
And it became my to-go book. It was the book that I went to, and the wavelengths, the resonating of how I believed in being a manager and a leader were grounded by you. So I joined the team.
Oh my gosh! So now that you've joined the team, have we improved your life? Have we helped you? Have we lifted you? Tell me about that. I think we have.
A little? Yeah, a whole
little
lot.
bit, a little bit.
A whole lot. You know, and a couple of things. When I joined the team, to be really honest, my only intention was to have access to your licensed content.
Sure.
I was going to put it in my toolkit, and I use that actually as an extra offering for my client groups, typically CEOs and their teams.
Mm-hmm.
And
Makes sense.
Yeah, well, here's what I found. The CEOs and the leaders who knew you, who were students of you, and there are many of them, were like, oh my gosh, and you had John Maxwell too. I'm like, absolutely, and I can get on calls with his team. So that added to my business. And then there's the CEOs who didn't know your books, but knew your name. And then when I can say, hey, CEO today recognizes you as a top 10 author, you need to read this book, they wanted to bring you into their culture. So it absolutely became a big part of our business.
Beautiful.
And I got to tell you that, no matter what you teach, train, or coach on, and I focus on emotional intelligence, there's a book for that.
Yes.
There's always a book for that, and it's John's book. So it's one voice that the companies can use for succession planning or leadership development. It was fantastic. So I got that, but I got more.
What was that?
So corporate America, for those of you who've been in it, as a chief HR officer, spirituality, the God word, those things don't come into play for red flag reasons, right?
Yeah.
In a big company. So when I went entrepreneurial, I didn't have all the office mates and the colleagues to talk to. But what I found was a community of people who shared values. I never expected to have that.
That's
I thought I'd
beautiful.
lost that. In addition, at that time in my life, and certainly in the past year with Bruce's passing, the spirituality of this community has transformed my life, and it really affected both of us. Wow. I got to say, Bruce and I always said, life is about living and loving. And this team, all the colleagues I've met, your team, the nourishment of caring and respect is so amazing. When he died, and when he got sick, this was a team of all the organizations we belong to, and we have several. This was a team that was there every step of the way, and that's just priceless, John.
That's what it's
and
all
I thank
about.
you for that, and the whole team. It's
Thank you.
Never expected that.
Anita, that's a beautiful story. And we're here to help you the rest of the way because you're a valuable team member. And I just, perhaps you're like Anita. You're already doing well, but you're looking for community. You're looking for people that love you, and you're looking for people that are like-minded on the same journey. If you're just kind of hungry to find some new friends that are just going to be more than friends to you, they're going to be colleagues that'll help you really build your life and your business, then just think about the John Maxwell team. In fact, today, why don't you call one of our representatives and see what we can do maybe to help you like we've helped Anita.
So now we see there is good advice and Andrew advice. Let's call that unadvice. I hope you've enjoyed today's Monday with Maxwell Lessons. What's some good advice or some unadvice you've received? Let us know in the comments. And what can we say about our John Maxwell team members? Every day, they look for ways to lead in and live out Maxwell leadership principles and philosophies. We're so grateful for the John Maxwell team. Each week, we'll feature a member or mentor from our team who will share their story and their journey with you. Why? Because we want you to see the real stories of difference makers, of value multipliers, and of possibilists. If you want to learn how you too can join John's team of difference makers, go to mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let me say that again. It's Mondays, plural, mondayswithmaxwell.com. Let us know how you saw Mondays with Maxwell and how you want to make a difference. Thank you again for watching today. We'll see you next week for another episode of Mondays with Maxwell.